Hey there, it's Courtney here from Flynn, and I am so excited that you're here. I just want to start off by saying that. And today we're going to get to make some Christmas tree pom art together. Yeah. I'm going to walk you through how we're going to make this pom. We're going to go through step by step, and I'm going to start out by going through some basics and our materials. All right, so let's talk materials. We're going to start with our pom maker. This is a Clover pom maker size large, which I feel gives us just a right amount of space to be able to create that Christmas tree in the center of our pom. And then I have a very sharp pair of scissors, which is super important to be able to cut through all of the yarn of our pom. And tweezers and a tapestry needle I use at the end to help fluff up all the little pieces of yarn and create some nice straight edges for our tree. And then all the different colors you see here are what we're using to create the pom. And I suggest using 5 or more colors. We're obviously going to need one color for the tree or multiple colors. I like to hold a couple strands together, but at least one color for the tree. And mine is green, but you can make yours purple, pink, whatever you feel like. The color for the star at the top, the color for the trunk, the color for the background, and I stuck with a creamy white color just because it contrasts nicely with all my other colors. And then we have all these colors up here, which are going to be our ornament colors. You can just choose one color for all of your ornaments if you wanted to do red or something like that, or you can choose multiple colors. So that's where the 5 or more colors comes in. All right, so we're ready to start wrapping our pom, and I just want to give you a quick visual before we begin. I'm just big on the visuals so you can have an idea of where this is going and how your pom is going to turn out at the end. But we're going to have our rectangular shape of our trunk down at the bottom toward the feet of the pom. Then we're going to have our triangle form in the middle here, and then we'll have our star at the top, okay? All right, so let's start wrapping that trunk. And we are using, our shape is gonna fill up a majority of this space, but you do wanna leave some room at the top and bottom for our, that background color, the white space there. So I'm gonna start wrapping my trunk right around here on the pom maker, okay? And I know my tendency is always to wrap more rather than less. But I'm telling you, less is more. So you only have a limited amount of space to get that shape in. So if you wrap a ton of yarn, it's going to be too big and it's going to blow out that entire shape. Okay, so try to err on the side of less rather than more. But I'm going to wrap this. This is a DK weight yarn, so I can give it a few wraps here. All right, and you're basically just wrapping on top of each other like so. Okay, and I think that's actually pretty good. I might give it one more wrap there. All right, and then when you look at it here, this is gonna split apart and form our rectangle for our trunk. So I'm good with this amount, and I'm going to start on the tree next. All right, so I've snipped off the tail from my trunk, and I'm ready to start wrapping my tree. And I'm holding 2 strands of DK weight, 2 different shades of green together here to form my tree. And I like using 2 different strands, or even 3 sometimes or more, because it gives your pom a little more dimension instead of just being flat with one color. So again, that's up to you, but that's just a tip for you if you choose to use it. And so now we're going to be forming our tree, and we're going to be creating a triangle. Since our trunk is down here, the widest, fattest part of our triangle will be at the bottom, and then we're going to go and taper off to the top, okay? So I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to grab that tree yarn, and we're going to start wrapping. And our widest part, again, it's okay if there's a few strands that are off. This is totally art, and it's not a big deal, okay? It's a little awkward when we were working with 2 different colors too, okay? So we're gonna start wrapping, and I'm gonna go probably about only to there. We don't have a lot of space. We still gotta get our star up here too. And so I'm just gonna go right about to there. You can see how far that is up on my pom maker, okay? And since the tapered part of our tree, the triangle tippy top will be up here, we're gonna go back and wrap as evenly as possible and tightly as possible, okay? Toward the bottom, okay? Now, at this point, we're gonna add in some of our ornaments. So I am going to grab that yarn and meet you back here in a second. All right, so I'm gonna start with my first set of ornaments, and I'm gonna use my blue yarn for that. I'm still holding on to my green. You don't really need to hold it too tightly, but I'm just holding it in place there. And just so our ornaments don't all turn out on top of each other, we're gonna kind of wrap this yarn in a spiral on top of that first layer. So I'm grabbing this yarn and I'm going to wrap it. It's okay if this comes down, it's not an exact science here. There we go. And there we go. So just, they don't have to be, you know, exactly like mine are, but you just want to have them spaced apart. So when you cut them open, they're not going to be all bunched together there, okay? So that will be our first set of ornaments. And now I'm going to pick up that green that I'm using for the tree, and I'm going to wrap over those ornaments. And I'm going to come almost to the top here of where that green started, but not all the way. We want to keep this part not so much yarn wrapped. We want to wrap more at the bottom to create that fatter triangular shape, okay? So I'm going to come back down here. And then we're going to start with our next ornament. So I'm going to start with this peachy pinky color, and I'm going to try to go like in between where those other ornaments are. I don't want my ornaments on top of each other either. So I'll put this pink right here, wrap it, kind of go in between those blue. Again, it's not an exact science. And then I'm going to come down here and back up, and I'm going to start wrapping again with my green, okay? So now I'm wrapping, and here I'm going to go around a few more times to get this a little bit wider at the base here. And then we're going to go back up, not to the top though, maybe only like halfway, okay? And then we're going to wrap a little bit more here. Now I'm covering up those ornaments, okay? And now I'm ready to add my third color of ornament. Okay, so I'm going to add my last color of ornament, which is purple, and I'm going to wrap it on top of this green yarn. And now that we've covered up most of that pink there, that's not going to show through at all. You're going to have some space in between there because we've created it with the green. So I'm going to go straight on top of here, and I'm going to use my green. I'm going to wrap the purple and green together just because it's working for me. Again, I'm going to try and get some purple not exactly on top of the other purple, and then we're going to start wrapping. And at this point, I don't want to go too much toward the top, okay, of our tree, that tapered part, because we want that to remain the skinnier top part of our tree. So I'm just going to keep going with my green to form that larger triangular base. Okay, and you can see it start forming here. It's much wider wrapped down here, and then it tapers off. I might have only wrapped once or twice up here, okay? So we're forming that triangular shape, and it's even visible when you look here. You can see that it's thinner up at the top, and we're gonna have that larger part of the bottom come out here. So I'm gonna keep wrapping with that green a few more times until I get that base of our tree right about there. I feel like looks good, okay? It's just where you just want a thicker part, but you don't want to go wrap too much on here, because then your tree is going to be so large and take up the whole part of your pom-pom, okay? So this looks about good to me. All right, so I snipped off the tail end of my green tree yarn, and I'm ready to wrap my star. And the star, I'm using 2 strands of worsted here, 2 different colors of worsted, again, to give it a little bit of little razzmatazz there at the top. And so I'm going to go right at the top of where I ended that green, and I'm gonna wrap this yarn. It's okay if that green comes out a little bit there. I'm gonna wrap this yarn a couple times around. Again, the star is the tiniest part of the tree. And again, my inclination is always to add more, but you don't really want to do that. It's a tiny star at the top of our tree, okay? So I might have wrapped that maybe 3 times around, okay? And I've got the tail end of that green coming here. So I'm going to snip off the top of my star so we can start wrapping our outer edge. All right, so it looks a little crazy right now, but you can kind of visualize it. We've got our trunk, our tree with the thickest part at the bottom of our triangle, tapering off with some of our ornaments poking out, and then we have our star at the top. And it looks a bit messy right now, and that's okay. It's gonna look a little bit messy, and some of this yarn, since it's not wrapped very many times around, starts coming apart, but that's okay, because right now is when we're gonna add our outer color, okay? And again, I'm using now for the outer color a super bulky and a worsted, both the same color. Again, I like this just to provide the dimension, and I like using the super bulky as the outer edge because you don't have to use as much yarn to wrap it, okay? So at this point, we're just gonna start wrapping. You can start wrapping anywhere you want. I'm just gonna hold it here, and we just want to wrap, go down here just to keep that trunk in place. We're going to wrap as tightly and evenly as we can around our design to cover up that whole tree, okay? So I'm just gonna keep wrapping. And I like to wrap a lot of yarn to make that pom super fluffy. I know some people struggle with having a fluffy pom, and you know, you need to wrap tight and even to get that fullness to your pom, all right? And I wanna make sure as I'm going around that I'm covering all of the yarn that made our tree, okay? We don't wanna see any green through there, or maybe just the faintest bit. And you wanna make sure you wrap toward the feet as much as you wrap in the middle. Otherwise you end up with like an egg-shaped pom. You know, I know people say they come out with like an oval pom, which you can trim down, but to try to avoid that, wrap as much in the middle here as you do toward those feet, okay? So I'm getting the ends here. All right, and I feel like that's pretty well covered. There's a little bit poking through, but that's not gonna be a problem, okay? So once you've wrapped that, you're gonna cut your ends off, and we're gonna close it up and do the other side. All right, so we've wrapped our pom on one side, and then we want to wrap the other side. I actually create the design on both sides when I make the poms because I'm using them as standalone art pieces or as props for my social media. And so you're only gonna see one side. And I like to up my odds. And so once I cut through, you know, there's art involved. Sometimes you cut through that pom and it's not looking exactly like you envisioned it. But if you wrap the design on both sides, you have a better chance that one of them you'll like better than the other, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and again, starting at the feet, so I can remember the trunk starts at the feet, the trunk started at the feet on this side. It's just something that you can remember you know, how to start it each time. I'm going to start wrapping again my pom design, starting at the trunk, doing the tree with all the ornaments, and then the star on top, and I'll meet you back here. All right, so we're ready to start cutting our pom. And if you follow me on Instagram or TikTok, you've probably seen me do this a bunch of times. But again, I'm gonna start cutting at the feet. I've got the pom wrapped. And we start right here by the trunk. And a lot of times I have to let go of the pom maker because there's so much yarn there to cut through. You really need like all your strength, okay? So we've got that white space at the bottom, and I'm starting to hit the trunk here. Okay, there's that tree popping open. Here's our trunk at the bottom. There's our little ornaments coming through. I just love this part, you guys. Okay, There's a few more ornaments popping through. Now our tree's starting to taper. You can see that widest part is at the bottom and we're starting to taper off, and I think I see the star poking through. There it is. Keep going, there's our star. Oh my gosh, this is my favorite part, you guys. I love seeing this come together. And then there's not as much yarn here. Well, take that back. Cut through. Okay, all right, so do you guys see it? This is our general shape of our tree, and we're going to take some time at the end after we take it off our pom maker to really make that shape come to life, but you can see it right here. I am so excited to show this to you. I just love seeing that little trunk. There's our star, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and cut the other side as well, and we'll see which tree we like better. All right, so I went ahead and this is the first side. This is that first tree, and you can see it's rather wide. On the second tree, this is how it looks, and I'm kind of liking the smaller shape. Again, this is what I was talking to you guys about. If you wrap a ton of yarn, it almost like takes up too much space on your pom and kind of loses the effect, or kind of blows out. The whole shape is taking up too much space. So I like the way this tree is looking better. So I'm gonna go with this side. And that's exactly the reason I wrap the design in both sides, because I know, again, I'm only gonna look at one side for my purposes, or if you're using it for like a pom wreath or whatever, you know, purpose you're using it for, this is the reason I wrap both sides. All right, so we're ready to tie off our pom. And unlike a typical pom where it doesn't matter whether you have your final knot and string coming out from the top or the bottom, in this case, our design, you know, definitely has a top and a bottom. And I like to hold my yarn at the bottom. So I wanna make sure my final knot is at the bottom. So I've got this thing jammed with yarn here. So the way I like to tie it is I will grab my piece of scrap yarn, and I like to make the knot, it's even coming apart up here, which I'm gonna try to prevent here. You make your initial knot or initial tie at one time at the top, and I like to tie very tightly so none of those strands are coming out, okay? And this thing was so jammed full of yarn because I made so much on that side that it's popping out a little bit, but that's okay, we're gonna make it work. All right, so I tie that initial knot at the top, and then I'm gonna flip it over and bring my yarn through here and bring my other yarn through the other side. And I'm gonna tie that bottom knot at the base of my trunk, okay? And I will meet you back here after I've knotted it off. All right, so I've knotted it off, and this is the side I like, okay? So that's what we're gonna be going with, but I'm gonna take my pom off the maker from that side that I don't like first, okay? So you're just gonna grab your feet and slide it through that shape, and it does get a little messed up as you're taking it off, but that's okay, we're gonna fix it on the other side. And here we are at the base here. And I'm just going to slide it through my shape to get it off that pom maker. All right. There it is, you guys. There's our little tree. I'm gonna take the two sides off and meet you back here in a second. All right, so here it is straight off that pom maker, and you can see, does that look perfect? No, it does not. All right, we got some scraggles, we got the shape is not exactly as we're liking it, and that's because the center of the pom maker came straight through our shape, okay? And that's where our tweezers and our scissors and our tapestry needle come into play, okay? So the trunk got a little smushed up into the tree. So this is where I come in at the end, and this is where I'm gonna walk you through some of those steps to make that tree look like a tree again, okay? All you need to do is take those tweezers and pull those brown fibers into place, okay? The other thing, obviously, you wanna do is trim up and spend some time shaping, okay? So obviously these giant pieces up here, nope, get rid of those guys, okay? I spend a lot of time shaping my poms at the end to make sure that they're as round as possible. And that just takes, you know, the time of you going through that to do the shaping. Your pom is never going to come off the pom maker looking perfect. Even if you make a pom that has no design in it, it doesn't come off always looking perfectly round. You need to spend that time to shape it to make it look the way you want it to. And you can see too, when I took it off, you do not want to shake this pom, okay? That is, if you shake it, this design is going to get shaken as well and not hold as well in place, okay? So you could see that I kind of take it off and I fluff it up with my hands, but I'm not going to go ahead and shake it. Get those fibers into place, all right? So I'm just going to keep snipping and trimming, and I'm not going to do this all. It would take me way too long for this purposes of this tutorial, but I'm just going to do some general snipping to get it into a little bit more of a round shape here, okay? This is also where I will spend some time. I can take the tapestry needle or the tweezers and really get into, especially those super bulky fibers, or actually any of the fibers, and you kind of poke at them to fluff them up, and that will give the appearance of a really nice fluffy dense pom by getting into some of those fibers, okay? And what I want to show you next is kind of how to shape that tree. All right, so we have the general shape of the tree here, but you know, it might not be exactly the way we want it looking. We have a little bit of an ornament coming out over here. We'll stick that back in. And I really just use my hands, tapestry needle, tweezers, whatever tools you want to make that tree come to life. And sometimes some of the fibers get a little bent down, so I'll pick those up. And you form that tree into, it's already in a triangle shape, but to make it look even a little bit prettier, use your fingers to get it just the way you want it. And I see some long strands over here, so I'm going to trim those off. Okay, just mess that up there. And then this is a little too fluffy. And our star on top, and the top of our tree here, just use that tapestry needle and kind of move some of those fibers into place. And here's our star. You might even find some loose pieces or some longer, yeah, some loose pieces there. I want to get that star looking like it's on top of our tree, and I want to get a triangle there with a nice tippity point there. So that's where you come in and work with it. And some of these longer strands from our star I want to get rid of. And here, like, you see a piece that's kind of out of place, so I'll take my tweezers and just move it into place, okay? So this is again where the art of the pom art comes in, and oh my gosh, look, it looks so cute. But this is where you can play with it for as long as you want to make it look just the way you want. You can see the initial shape is there. We've got our trunk, our triangular shape for our Christmas tree, and the star on top. And this is where it comes up to you as the pom artist to see, you know, where exactly, how far and how long you want to spend on making it look just the way you want to look. I'm going to spend a few minutes doing that. I love how those ornaments pop. I'm going to obviously do some more trimming. We get, you know, the outer shape of my pom isn't looking exactly as round as I would like. So I'll meet you back here in a minute after I've done a little more shaping and to show you where I'm at. All right, so what a cute little pom we made here, okay? And again, you can spend as much time as you would like to make it the way you want it. I am gonna play with it more after we're done here, just because otherwise it would take hours for you to watch this tutorial. But I want to leave you with some tips on how to finish off as well. Again, I said I use my tapestry needle, and I will come into some of those, you know, the tips of the yarn there, and just fluff it up. So you can go through and just play with it to kind of make that yarn become a little more fluffy. So I will do that. Again, I use that tapestry needle to straighten out any of those edges and pull that yarn closer in. Another pro tip that I wanted to share with you that I've learned over time is If you do end up seeing any large holes, I don't really see anything this time, but because these are intended for like a stationary piece of art, or like on a palm wreath or something that's not going to move a lot, if you did encounter, maybe there's like a hole there, it's not bothering me, but just so I can show you, you can grab pieces of yarn that you've cut off at, when you're shaping your palm, and kind of stick it in there. Get it in there so it's not going to fall out, but you just shove it in there to kind of fill in any spaces that you might have, okay? And the same could be done with a tree. This tree to me looks pretty good. I don't really have any of those gaps, but just in case you did end up with a gap or didn't wrap as tightly as you wanted to, you can always come in and just, add a piece or two here or there if you need to. But I'm really happy with the way this turned out. Again, I'm gonna keep shaping it after we're done here. But you spend the time that you want on it. And I hope you have so much fun making one of your own, and maybe you hang it as an ornament on your tree this year. Maybe you use it in one of your Instagram or TikToks. And I'm so happy that you were here. I hope this brings a little joy to your holiday season, and I will see you next time. Follow me on Instagram at Flinit to see what I'm working on next.